So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for a couple minutes. I'm going to show a 7-minute video, and then I'm going to let Stella come up, start playing cello, and then once she starts playing, I'm going to come up and read my poems. So what I want to say just to preface this is that I was born in Chicago, born and raised. I moved to San Francisco when I was 30. And so I grew up in a time in Chicago in the 80s. I was born in 1980 exactly. And so by the time I started school in 1985, gang violence and the crack epidemic was a motherfucker. And so punk rock was coming around at the time too. And the reason that I chose Naked Reagan to do this was because I did write those Damaged poems, which I stole the title from Black Flag's first album, Damaged. And so I was talking with Jason, and I was like, I think I'm just gonna do Black Flag. And he was like, dude, do Naked Reagan, you're always talking about them, and you introduced me to them. So I was like, all right, fuck it. And then the thing is this, I chose them because they're really straightforward. My work tends to be straightforward. It comes from a blue-collared working ethic. I come from a blue-collared family, from Cuba to the United States. That hasn't changed. I'm the third person in my family to graduate from college. So that's it. I'm gonna let Naked Reagan talk for themselves. Stella's gonna play cello, and then I'm gonna read.
Like the Dead Boys, the Buzzcocks, the Stranglers, The Wire. They influenced a whole bunch of other people who influenced everybody else. Hopefully, we've embedded with music in every single town in the United States and the world.
Chicago in those days wasn't conservative, it was corrupt. A segregated, corrupt city run by, some vicious people.
It was a real tight-ass Catholic, shove a piece of coal up your butt to get a diamond kind of city. It was a very closed-down city, very conservative, was not open.
Anybody who knows the words of this next one will get $5.
Chicago didn't really have a punk scene until about 1980. They were a little later than New York, LA. They were, obviously London. They were going full on at that point. Effigies were the first really important punk band out of Chicago. Very soon after, you had Naked Reagan, Big Black. Strike Under was kind of a contemporary, but all of a sudden you had a really cool punk scene.
What I really wanted to do was sing for this shitty band that Santiago and my brother were in. And since Santiago came up to me one day at the bar at a band and said, you really need to cut your hair.
How could I not ask him to cut that? That was not punk.
So I cut my hair and then I started singing for those guys and I quit that crappy ass suburban band I was in.
There was something about the whole Chicago rock and roll crowd that just, viewed punk as like a threat.
If you walk down the street with a mohawk, you were going to get all kinds of comments and you might get your ass kicked.
Back then they wanted to fight you, they just wanted to kick your ass, man. They felt threatened, they didn't like it or understand it.
things that was evident about these bands is it was one step at a time. It was like every little plateau was a surprise. Like, wow, I didn't think we'd make it a year. I didn't think we'd play to 25 people. I didn't think anybody wanted to buy our single.
The early Naked Raygun was wet. They were more bizarre, freaky. They were very visual, almost avant-garde.
Think that you were looking at a rockabilly band because they would have these sort of goofy rockabilly hex and hose and haze. And then sometimes you'd think you were listening to some, like a retarded art project, just because it would be all beeps and squiggles and mumbling. And then sometimes it was just sounded like heavy metal. At any rate, Naked Raygun blew my mind. They were the weirdest band, best band I'd ever seen.
Stella's setting up. I was gonna say it's kind of cool to be playing. I'm not fucking playing.
Stop playing.
Actually, no. It's kind of cool to be performing today because if I wasn't here today, I probably would have gone back to Chicago because Naked Raygun's playing tonight at the Metro Cabaret for anniversary shows, and they're playing tomorrow as well. So if I wasn't here, I'd be there. And I'd probably be one of those douchebags jumping up on stage. Damage 16. I want to share a moment with you. Tell you something I haven't told anyone else before. How I'll never forget that night in November 2005 in the emergency room at St. Elizabeth Hospital in the west side of Chicago. Waiting to be taken onto the psych ward, my mother putting my gold chain in her purse with my Marlboro Reds and the chrome Zippo. The $4 in quarters she put in my hand for the payphone that I put in the breast pocket of my hospital gown. How we barely spoke. The nurses knock on the door and the empty wheelchair that would wheel me to the floor. The look in my mother's eyes when we said goodbye, her kiss on my cheek, her tears. How the nurse left me facing my mother in the hall while she was being handed my intake papers and I interrupted the exchange. Told her to turn the wheelchair around because I couldn't stand looking at my mother, watching her youngest son, waiting to be taken to the psych ward of the hospital she worked at. In this poem, I will try to weave Zuzu's pedal into the narrative. This Christmas, there is no snow covering the ground. Cracked grayscale of an unbeautiful city that depresses. I feel pressed down into those slabs of concrete that go on for blocks. This is home. Chicago, the former stockyard for the nation that Benny Goodman had to escape, but couldn't. No matter how far he got, he could always smell slaughter on his father. and I could smell my father on nights wandering San Francisco. The scent of stale cigarettes and alcohol after a late night shift tending bar, his breath after nursing drinks and smoking. These are memories that force me to escape, but emotional baggage cannot be shed. It is not lizard skin to be skinned. Today, I feel the wind chill factor dipping from 30 degrees to 15, and I want to find the nearest bridge overlooking the Chicago River to bid my farewell. My soul leaping from body to water to shock it, to bury it forever and keep it, to reincarnate it in a different city. Chicago, on this 25th of December, I put you in my pocket. A memory to pull from time to time, to remember I was born on a winter's day in February. Keep you close like petals to hold on to. Remind me that I am alive. This is the last one. Chicago. And they tell me you are brutal, and my reply is, on the faces of women and children, I have seen the marks of wanton hunger. And having answered, so I turn once more to those who sneer at this, my city, and I give them back the sneer and say to them, come and show me another city with lifted heads singing, so proud to be alive and coarse and strong and cunning. Carl Sandburg. I can tell you how this city burned, how it still burns, with shootings and electricity rates rising like the summer heat and humidity. How pushing weight and packing heat is a way of life, from corrupt cops to those claiming blocks, with its north, south, and west sides segregated. Living under a common hate from Mayor Daley's 1966 pen stab in King's back after the summit conference. Another signature to unify families ignored. And we have to watch where we walk in this city and neighborhoods, flinging magnetic curses amid the toil, asking ourselves, what the fuck have you done wrong? What are you going to do for the youth? Subscribe to them all your fears till they become like you? An 80s baby can tell you about the crack epidemic. 30 years later, you can see the repercussions in newborn eyes. But this is my kind of town. The one that built itself back up after it burnt down and threw a riot bomb for an 8-hour workday. Home of the Society for Human Rights and the Chicago Defender. Benny Goodman and the Art Ensemble of Chicago. Chess records and wax tracks. The Roby House and the Sears Tower. The city that birthed me with its wide shoulders and taught me how to separate its political corruptness from the 2,714,856 faces walking its streets. Thank you. Give it up for Stella.